Hi everybody, Mark here from Digital Groove Online and welcome back to this week's video. And I thought I would do another track breakdown for you this week and just show you with some of the clients that I take in. Some of them are at the very early stages, and what I like to do at the start is get them to use sort of sample libraries to build ideas with rather than focus on the actual physical production early on. And what that helps with is muscle memory and sort of navigating your way around Ableton before you actually get into some of the nitty gritty stuff. So this is an example of someone who's not been with me a very, very long time. And they've went away and they've picked out sounds and samples that they quite like for themselves. And what I'm going to show you here is a before of what the client brings to me. And then we work through that and just sort of add depth and, extra sounds and make sure that the frequency range is sort of filled out a little bit better, sounds a bit more professional. And we step through that and they start to learn that process from there on in. So this is the sample that he had brought to me, and I'll play this first and then I'll switch to the version where we spent a couple of hours on during the week. So it's in key, which is great. He's picked the samples. It's sort of a housey vibe to it. And then whenever it loops back on itself, we'll do the after, and it'll take you through each channel. Again, the before and the after. And it's a great way to get started in music production. You can use sample libraries like Splice or LoopCloud, or maybe you have sample CDs of your own, and you start browsing through those and picking elements that you quite like. And I also advise, once you pick your first melodic element, that we then start looking at that key and bringing other sounds in that will complement the idea that you're putting together. So the before and after, you can see there's a difference there, but the main theme of the track that he put together is still there. So we'll take a look through all the channels and we'll work our way down. There was a little bit of a reference track used with regards to arrangement that we do. Once we get our sounds together, I like to look at other people's arrangements and sort of tell the story in similar ways that some of the pro producers do. And no two arrangements are really the same. There are little fills and effects and gaps and differences in them. So it is really good to look at other people's storytelling through arrangement and having a look at that yourself and trying to break that down. So we sort of done that up till the breakdown and then took it wherever we wanted to afterwards. And this was the reference track. And it doesn't necessarily mean it sounds the same, it's just it could be completely different, but you like how that sort of evolves, that track, and you look at that and tell a similar story with your own sounds. So as you can see, that is nothing like the original track that was created. As you can hear that wee beep, 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 beep. I quite like that, so we done something similar with Diva over here. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. It's this one. So you can tell it sounds completely different, but the rhythm is quite nice, and we took that into the track as well. So we'll work our way down through it. I haven't really got it organised in any order as we were working on this during the week. So what we'll do is we'll just start with some of these. The kick and percussion, like, first of all. So let me just see if I can organize this for you. Just decided to do this morning. So there's the kick drum. Okay, let's start with that. The kick drum itself is just out of a pack. It's one of my favorite packs. I talk about it all the time, and it is called Cyclopedia 2. It's quite an expensive pack, but it has around 18 gigabyte of sounds, and it ranges from sort of techno, organic house, melodic house, progressive house, and it's just sort of all those. If you're into house music, you should really take a look at it. There are smaller packs of that you can get. You don't have to get the full one, which are a bit cheaper, but really, really great sounds in it. So we started off with this kick drum here, and it is pretty clean. I haven't put any processing on it whatsoever. So let me just check this out against some of the other percussion loops. The percussion loop that I've put underneath that is a Pro Q4, and it's just shaved off some of the tops. So let's have a listen here. Oh, that's the bass. And that's just a loop actually, yeah, that's a bass loop that I've taken out of there. And the original bass sound that you hear in his is this sample just below here. There is a wee bit more processing involved in that. We've put CLA vocals on it, and it brings it forward in the mix, albeit that we've sort of EQ'd some of the high frequencies back down again, like so. And I'll just introduce that now and let you hear that. It has a little bit of delay, which I'm sending over to this delay unit here. If I turn this chain off and on again, you can hear what it's adding. So let me just see if I can just add these to the actual group. Okay, and we'll turn that off. So it's quite sharp. We've put it through a compressor, another compressor after that. We put it through an EQ, shaving off some of those highs, and then there is a plugin called Bark of Dog, just adding a bit of warmth at the very, very end. So this is a bongo loop from memory. Really, really nice. No real processing on it. Just one thing I will add is that when he brought the sample up, we played around with the start time. Like now I've recorded it back in or consolidated that, so basically it'll sort of put it where we wanted it to. So he had a particular rhythm with this that I didn't think set quite well with the kick drum. So you take your start marker and you sort of move it around and listen to the rhythms changing. Now I think once you get up to one bar there, it sort of repeats itself. But you get interesting variations if you just move the start marker. And we find that whenever we messed around with that, we got sort of that bounce, call and response effect with the kick and the bass. So it sounded quite cool. Sort of on the offbeat, it made more sense. These are mainly loops, to be honest with you. We've used Diva at the top to create that little synth sound that I showed you at the start, and also Diva had a percussive hit, which I thought worked really well with the kick drum as well. If I just take out the basses again, let's see, and the bongos, and we play this top one here with the kick drum. It was just a percussive hit that I really liked. It's just a preset inside Diva. It's a percussive hit. And when you add that with, for example, the bongos here, sounds quite nice. And the more percussion we start adding in there, the groove sounds quite cool. This sound here is just, we loaded in some, just stop that, we loaded in a lot of sort of shorter hi-hats, I suppose, and rather doing that 16th sort of sound, we picked 1/8, which sort of does it, so sort of 2 in between each kick drum, which is quite nice. We'll just solo that as well. There's a bit of an LFO tool just ducking it, and I think we have, no we don't, we thought we had some sort of velocity changes on that, but we haven't as well. So let's have a look here, and we'll play that then with it too. it didn't do sort of that fast running sound. And if you look, I have actually shifted the notes slightly forward until I like how it sounds, because we've got a tack on this shaker, and sometimes whenever you put that on the grid it can sound behind, and rather than just move this up like this here, because it sounds really good, that little swoosh up into it sounds good, I don't want to get rid of that. So how do we get that in time? All we do is basically grab all those notes and slide them forward slightly all together, and until you hear it sit a little bit more in the groove. Because we could take that start marker and move it up, but when we move it up we're taking that lovely attack away from it. You want that sort of swoosh off a shaker. So after that we have a clap and a snare here, or clap. If I just solo that, there's not an awful lot of processing on these things too, which it still sounds really great. Just goes to prove that you don't have to EQ all the time, you don't have to compress, you don't have to use effects, you just use them as and when and sporadically, and you can still get very, very good results. We have a gentle squeeze compressor just on the actual group channel. There was another sound in there which I've taken out. Let's have a listen. Just sending that to the built-in reverb. We'll just start putting the basses back in again. Next thing that came in there was like a percussion loop to lift it up a little bit more. I'm just going to solo that as well. It's just going to come in now. We'll just add in the synth from the very start. And that rhythm works really, really nice with it. Percussion should come in right about now. Okay, the melody that you heard in it, let's have a listen to this. So this is a bit different. Let me just take this off and solo that on its own. And let's have a look. Yeah. This one is at 0. I may have re-recorded this back in. No, there's -12. Okay, so whenever he let me hear his initial mix of this, it was just one that sounded like this. So let me just make sure there's no processing on it. LFO tool RC20, I'll just turn that off and turn that off. Yeah, so it was this here. And whilst it sounds good, it was quite thin. So we messed around with a couple of things like shaper box. Obviously I've turned it off on this one, but I think there is a shaper box on the bottom one, yep. So we layered that up as well, and we shifted it down an octave just to give it a little bit more thickness. So if I double click inside this, you'll see it is set to -12 semitones, which just pitches that down a full octave. And what I was hoping to do was just thicken that sound up from being so thin. So let's have a listen. I'll actually turn off the shaper box in here before I bring it on so you can hear it. So you can hear instantly it thickens up the sound. We've got that lower octave and the higher one. So I'm just going to go back to this one that had the shaper box on it. We'll turn it back on and see what it's doing. So you can see it's actually just shifting the... It's giving those little rises and falls. There was a real stereo pan on it, but I've taken the mix down on it as well, and the drive, I've taken the mix down on it as well. It was overkill, but I I just blended that in a little bit better, so I'll turn it off so you can hear it. So it gives it a little bit of movement. Shaperbox is a great tool, by the way, and they had a Black Friday sale on last week, the week before, and you get the, I think it was about £70, 60, £70, and it is a great tool for, you know, quirky sound designs. It's full. Just turn this off a second. It's full of great presets already. You know, rhythmic stuff. You can click on that and you'll have a full list of rhythmic presets that are already there. Obviously, you can create your own as well, which is cool. But I'll just turn this off and put it back on again. As it's playing, you can hear that movement kicks in. Now we'll solo this one. And we'll go back to the group and turn these on. So RC20. And it is the depth of Plux. Tiny bit of wobble, distortion, reverb and space. A little bit of floor noise as well. So turn that off. And we'll add the LFO again to it. So it gives it a bit of a pump. Just take that away so that it's not clicking. And we've got it on around 81% there. So you can see that even with audio, we can enhance it to give it a little bit more movement, a little bit more depth, and just make it a little bit more exciting overall. So with the bass in, and the kick drum, let's put these hi-hats in as well. That's what we've done so far. Cool. Alright, we're moving down towards these effects now, and little chops from a vocal sample that I've done. Let's just go back up to here and have a look at this. So I'm going to solo that. Let's have a listen. I've got an RC20, there's a bit of vinyl noise on that. Okay. This was a sample that was quite repetitive, so we basically just chopped it and put it in really where we wanted to, just so it was a bit more sporadic and not repetitive. So let's see, we'll put it in with the actual lead. And then we don't hear it again for a lot of bars. I think in the original audio sample we would have heard this 3 or 4 times by now. Okay, it's quite cool that, but only an RC20 on it, that's it. Let's go to the next one and solo it. Have a listen. This is actually a vocal sample, and I've bounced it down so I don't have it on it. It was actually a Shaperbox percussive preset, and obviously I've bounced it back down there. You can see it, but it was really, really interesting because the original vocal. Have I still got the original vocal? You can hear all those little glitches and stuff on it. I don't have the original sample there. Let's see if I can go to the current project. Will it have it? What's this here? No, I'm sure it's there somewhere. Okay, let's put that back. Yeah, so it sounds quite cool with all the drums. It's very percussive and groovy. Let's just throw it in around here so you can hear it with the drums. Maybe with the bass. Those sounds again, we're sort of rising up with the percussive elements, and in here we've taken a vocal sample and we've just chopped it up and created a little bit of a rhythm out of it. Basically how we do this is we create a MIDI track, drag the audio sample into the MIDI at the bottom here. It says drop on audio, and it'll create a device here, which is a sampler. From there we then go to slice mode, and then you mess around with the sensitivity. Basically, I'm not going to move it now because it'll move these chops out of phase, but it was pretty much spot on. I think there was one I had to remove myself manually, and you can double click on these arrows if you want to remove that so that the sample plays right the way through. You can set it to trigger or gate. Trigger means it'll, as soon as you hit the keyboard, it will play the full sample, and gate will be as long as you hold that key down. So the longer or shorter the key is, it'll cut the audio off, if you depending on the length basically of that note, where if you have it on trigger, it'll trigger the full note regardless. So let's have a listen to this. And you can see it at the bottom here, taking those little samples. And I've got a little altar boy on it, because it's quite high. It puts a bit of depth to it. It has a shaper box, EQ, shaper box. So there's a bit of distortion on that shaper box and a little bit of like a cassette tape rewinding effect. Let's just have a look at it. This is what's happening. We have time stretching. We have drive, we have noise, we have pan, and liquid. Okay. And we can mix those as well. And also the master has a mix too. So 31% is where I have it up. That lets the original audio through and mixes the effect with it, which is cool. It just sort of rinses and repeats itself, so let's play it with the percussion and some of the other sounds that we have here. Yeah. Let's hear it in context with everything, sure. It's not playing ball with the solos. So around here we have a ride cymbal, just to give it a little bit more energy later on in the build-up. Okay, so the ride cymbal doesn't have any process in it whatsoever. Just use the drum rack again and cycle through the sounds until I found one that I liked. And it was this one here. And stuck with that. Haven't used it an awful lot through the track, just in one or two parts of it, which is great. Not overkill. So down to the last couple of things here, which is really effects and a little bit of atmospheric texture. You probably heard that a second ago. Again, just a sample with a bit of Valhalla shimmer on it to space it out, and a little bit of LFO ducking. Just use samples. It does this little pitch down. It's on a 50% mix. And just dips out. And then it plays over here again later on. I'll take that off just so you can hear Just group that so you can hear what it's like before we put the big shimmery reverb on it. Actually has a dip in it already. But when I hit stop, it doesn't have that sort of spacey feel. As soon as we put on the shimmer and the LFO tool after. If we put the LFO tool before the shimmer, you wouldn't hear the ducking because the shimmer is happening after. It would be very faint. If we put the LFO tool after the shimmer, it's going to duck what's coming out of it, which makes it cleaner. And you know, there's various different ways that you can use this, but that's how I like to use it. So the last two things are just little effects. We're still working on this track. It's not completed, by the way. But that was in a couple of hours. We put that together from the original sample that he brought into me. It was actually a project, and we've extracted those sounds out of that project and built on it inside this project here. That's with the ducking off. It's just like a gated effect in key with a shimmer again. I love using shimmer. It adds great space, but you probably see sometimes I roll off the high, pull it back so that and I roll off the lows as well if it gets too muddy. In this case, the sound was okay and didn't really require it, but we'll look at that more whenever we go into the mix down in another session. The last one is just a Kashmir sample of Splice. We've taken off a lot of the low end, and again just an LFO tool again. It's just a down sweep to give it impact once the track actually drops. Okay, I think that's all of the channel so far. There's a bit more work to do on it, of course, but I just wanted to show you today that it doesn't matter what level your production is at, whether you're brand new, we can always look at helping you at Digital Groove Online, and you can hit me up on the website if you want to have a chat about anything. But if I hit solo here, and we'll just go from what the client brought to me to how it turned out, and we're still working through it at the minute, obviously. And you don't have to be a great sound designer. You don't have to overcomplicate your project. You can use audio as much as possible. Honestly, and then we grow into the physical production stage as you move along and get more confident at producing music on your own. And obviously, this creates muscle memory because you're not really worrying about having to make complex leads or melodies and things like that there. He's putting these samples together going, I really like how this sounds, can we make it sound a bit more professional? And that's where it went from this to what I'm going to show you. Originally, and I'll leave you with this. Well, actually, just before I go, let you hear the build-up, so how we get into the break and the build-up. This is just a snare building. It's a tool room snare, but I've taken a short snippet and just duplicated the whole way along and built it up. Well, there you have it. That's a mix down, or a mix of a track put together with one of my clients during the week, who brought me some of his own samples in, and that's what we turned it into. So hopefully, give you a bit of an insight into. We don't have to be super creative at the very start of our process, and we can also always turn something into a decent track. We're still working on it. Hopefully we'll get it finished soon, and I'm only playing snippets of it because I don't want to give too much of the track away, but it's been very kind of him to let me use this as a demo for you all, so that you can see how we can take it from a before to after, as I've shown you. So hope you've enjoyed this week's video, and we'll be back next week with some more.